And we're back after I took a 2-week hiatus from the show, but we're back with Venezuela in focus in a couple of seconds.
Well, a lot of things happen in 2 weeks.
That's right.
We'll see.
We'll talk about it. And hello, I'm Oscar Schlenker.
I'm Roberto Hung. So,
and this
Oscar,
is Venezuela in Focus.
Yes, our podcast dealing with news from Venezuela.
About Venezuela and from Venezuela.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Oscar, you were 2 weeks out from Caracas?
Yes, I went to Puerto La Cruz. That's in the eastern part of Venezuela. I went to deal with some family matters there. But I thought it would be interesting to talk about having a road trip in Venezuela because it's not that easy as some people might think. And it's not a very long road trip.
No, it's only like 300 kilometers. It's 250 miles probably. But... Well, that's not a long distance, but you have to take care of, gas, so you can pour gas not everywhere. And the street, well, I don't know if you feel it safe and secure, because one thing is that you feel, comfortable driving, but another thing is having, this stop point of control of the police or the military.
We counted 26 control posts, and I would say military posts, but it was military, police, National Guard, all kinds of armed forces. I think they were all represented in the road from Caracas to Puerto La Cruz.
So you felt safer.
Well, yeah, you're supposed to feel safe, and it's because there's a lot of crime in those roads, and that's what they allege, and that's why they say that they're there. But, you have to stop at some. Some of them, they let you go pass through. Some of them will make you get down and check your whole car. It comes and goes. You have to have a lot of patience.
Well, more than patience, you said that they allege that it's for, the crime and stuff that indeed exists. But that opens another door that, there's a corruption. You see how many people is, parked over and they're asked for whatever paper or whatever they need. Well, and the police, they let you go if you for a little amount of money, you can,
Yeah, of course, there's corruption. I didn't get to experience that, thank God. But of course, there's corruption. And if you're transporting something illegal, I'm sure there's some kind of.
What do you mean illegal?
Well, anything can be illegal in this country. Yeah. Anything that they deem illegal could be illegal.
Well, what you can see a lot in the roads are when they stop, these trucks taking food.
Yeah.
And that's one of the, all the guards and the stuff, they ask, some help so they get the food. So if you have some, let's say, 20 pieces of, chicken or whatever meat you want to buy, you want to take, so you have to leave some here, some there, and the other there.
That could happen. Yeah, of course. Happens. Yeah, we've heard stories. That does happen. But, regardless of this, I have to say Venezuela is such a beautiful country. I really love my country. Going to Puerto La Cruz just demonstrates how much love I have for the country because it's a beautiful place. And that's something that no ideology, no dictatorship, no revolution can take away from us, and it's the natural beauty of this country, which we have a lot to give, and I think it's important to rescue that. Indeed.
And Puerto La Cruz, it's special for me because I have family there too, and a lot of friends, and a lot of many of my years, of youth and student and university, I used to go there, and it's every time you mention Puerto La Cruz, all this reminds me, every nice experiences.
And I think that one of the things that will rescue Venezuela from this economic crisis at some point is tourism.
Just like Jimmy Marul said in our podcast, the 2 podcasts.
And I think that tourism is so important, and to rescue that tourism or to incentivize that tourism, we have to work on security. And I think that's the most important thing that Venezuela...
Well, security and service in general.
Yeah.
Because despite, exist all these big hotels, I feel more comfortable when you go, like these posadas, like small houses, so you can feel, more direct contact with the community and the beaches. And, well, it is just great.
Yeah. But there's a lot to do. There's a lot of work to do. And here in Venezuela, the work is starting, at least in the humanitarian department, because the humanitarian aid finally arrived with the Red Cross. And it's interesting that when they announced that humanitarian aid was going to come in the country, they said they don't want it to be politicized. And what has happened, Roberto?
Well, I have my personal opinion about this. It was mentioned that it wasn't to be politicized, but at the same time, if you see who brought it, there is Red Cross, International Red Cross Organization, through Venezuelan Red Cross. I have also my personal opinion about Venezuelan Red Cross, because all of a sudden, after 20 years, okay, now appears, like the savior of this, and trying to, to wash the face of the regime. And it's important to mention because the Red Cross is not an international organization such UN and OEA, or the Organization of American States. And because of this, a lot of people may think that this could be, a life save for the government, that, accepting the humanitarian aid is accepting that it's a crisis, something that was denial until now. So, okay, the humanitarian help received by the government is good, but if you want to bring it, by your own, like any commercial activity, it's bad. So we have to really be scared of what is hidden behind this.
Yeah, especially because there's a lot of stories surrounding the director of the Venezuelan Red Cross and his his ties with the government.
I have to be clear that you mentioned it first. I didn't know that you were going to mention it, but this guy has been.
It's out in the news.
Yes, it's out of the news. He's been director of Red Cross, from Venezuelan Red Cross, since I don't remember exactly if it's 1972, 74, but not more than 76. And what's been the presence of Red Cross in Venezuela? Always denying the
humanitarian crisis.
The humanitarian crisis. So I don't see it, very, very clear. And since exactly February 2000, not 2002, 2000, and this particular organization, the Red Cross, haven't done anything from Venezuela. And we're talking about the deslave de Vargas.
Yeah.
Just remember December 1999.
Yeah.
How was it?
More than 30,000 people died in that disaster.
Well, it is. Well,
that's the estimate in Wikipedia. I'm sorry, I'm using Wikipedia, people, but
well, there is not also official.
There's not an official count, but approximately 30,000.
From that event, that particular event, we'll see that the people related with this organization, they have some other. It is valid to have personal, professional and personal exercise of, your activities, but it's really linked this group. So personally, I don't, see it in a very, candid way.
Yeah. Well, it is difficult to pinpoint, and it is being politicized. The government went out and said, look, we're bringing the humanitarian aid. It is approved by Maduro. The health minister here welcomed the humanitarian aid. But, I think it's important that it came. I think it's important that it helps the people that need it. And it's also important because it shows that there is a humanitarian crisis, and that people have been denouncing this humanitarian crisis for years now. It's not been a thing of a couple of months or 1 year. It's been at least 5 years that people have been asking for humanitarian aid. So it's being vindicated in some way.
This observation you're making, it's important because, one, you're accepting exists a crisis. Well, whose fault is it? This crisis is not only, the only crisis we have. We have economical crisis and political crisis.
Yeah.
And who caused it?
Well, of course, they're going to say it's because of the sanctions. When we saw sanctions yesterday from Canada, Canada sanctioned 43 more people from linked to Nicolas Maduro's government, including our Minister of Exterior, Jorge Arriaza. So, they're going to blame that as part of the...
Well, and taking our attention to another aspect. El Pollo Carvajal.
Mm-hmm.
So
Hugo Carvajal, linked to the Nicolas Maduro's government,
and more than Maduro's,
Chavez, and he was the director of the intelligence agency here in Venezuela,
and
and several other things.
Yes.
And he, a couple of months ago, he went out in support of Juan Guaidó and rejecting Nicolas Maduro and the Chavista regime. But now he is under arrest.
Well, but not in here. What happened is that while all this happened here, that he was declaring against, the regime of Maduro, and even mentioning that he has so much information of, the drug cartels composed by generals, high generals in the army, well, in all the armed forces. He was detained in Madrid, in Spain. So he flew out of Venezuela, going to Madrid. He was detained in Madrid because he was asked by the justice in the United States. So a lot of people are thinking that, well, that was a fake. That was probably the way to fly direct to the United States. And other people will say, well, that's an idea, to preserve his integrity, because he wasn't, sure that probably he was going to be kept alive in here. We know how these people act.
Well, I'm sure he was involved in crime as well, so it could be legitimate too.
Yes, but the thing is that there's another episode of things that happen in Venezuela. So you have to, keep on.
Yeah, you always have to think about the conspiracy. You always have to think about the conspiracy here. This is a country of conspiracy theories, and it's because of a lack of information. When you have so much lack of information, it leads to speculation. And, we cannot be blamed for speculating what's going to happen, because we don't know.
Well,
we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how long this crisis is going to last. That we're living. A lot of people are more concentrated right now on when the light is going to come on or off, or when they're going to get water, than of all the political things that are going around, which are important, because it's because of the political crisis that we're having all these other problems as well.
All this water thing and the electricity. Well, we're on forced vacation. Because we have the Easter days, so the government, mandatory vacation for everybody, so you don't, be on the street. Yeah. Suddenly, also, there are some electricity in some places that they didn't have to before. And
I think last month the students only had 5 days of class. Last month, and this month it's full of holidays.
So if not, class part. We're under siege. Do you remember when you studied the Middle Ages, when the cities were, sitiated and under siege? It is like happened to us. So you are every day, seeing if you get a shower because you don't have water, or you have, you can wash your clothes, or you can buy some food. So you have to be every day taking care of things that, you do for granted everywhere in every situation.
Yeah, and then you start forgetting to do your podcasts and
and informing people.
That happens.
No, and also happens that the tension.
Speaking of which, one other news that I want to mention is that the TV channel that I work for, Deutsche Welle, was put off the air during the weekend.
Officially, unofficially?
Unofficially, because they were, usually when the government puts a channel off the air here in Venezuela, which they've done to CNN, Spanish television, Colombian news television, Argentinian
newspapers, I think.
Chile. I mean, they've put off the air several TV channels, news channels from international news channels. So when we saw that Deutsche Welle, which is a German news channel, was put off the air, we sounded the alarms, we're off the air. It's happened before, but miraculously, well, not miraculously, but on Monday, it came back on the air.
Not more than 2 days, was it?
Not more than 2 days.
Well,
it came back faster than Chavez did after he was ousted in 2002. But
that shows another thing that, what could be behind the scenes of this?
Well, of course, Deutsche Welle it's a German news channel, and the German government protested. They said, "Hey, what's going on? That's an attempt against freedom of speech."
And also, I see the programs you have. once a day or once every 2 days, they have a special program, showing what's going on different aspects of the crisis.
They have a Venezuela in focus on their version.
Perfect. See, and all this also happens, to distract our attention off the political game.
Yes.
For instance, we have this Juan Guaidó parliamentary immunity that want to be, or the regime considered to be removed, or all in the process of being removal. So it's important to mention that all these things of ideas of institutions, we have the National Assembly, the Parliament, the legislative branch of the power, and the regime created this constitutional National Assembly in order to assume certain faculties that they don't have. So the Supreme Court, the Supreme Tribunal Supremo, the Supreme Tribunal, wants to open an investigation against Juan Guaidó, so ask the removal of the immunity, but not to your natural body, which is National Assembly, but the Constituent Assembly. It is important here to be clear.
It's complex.
It is complex. But everywhere, during the entire humanity, if you have this immunity because of your condition of deputy or senator, the only institution that can remove that is the one that you belong to. No one out.
Yeah.
Well, there are some cases, but the idea is that, your work is being, cautious. You're being warned what's going on.
But you know what? I think it's more powerful than the title that is removed or the immunity that you have is the support you have from the people. And we've seen this week Juan Guaidó go to the western part of Venezuela, to cities that people thought he was never going to get to. And he got there, and he found himself surrounded by a lot of people.
Yes.
A lot of people, and he has not been put in jail.
Yeah, and also
against all obstacles.
Yes.
They had many obstacles to get there.
During the road, they have all these police and military stops, and the people of those places, they remove the police personnel, so they allow to go.
So I think it would be very dangerous for the government to imprison Juan Guaidó. It would compromise them severely. I don't think there's going to be a military intervention of some sort. I think there's still a lot of things that internationally nations can do to Maduro's government to pressure him. But obviously they know that if they put Juan Guaidó in jail, they're going to be in much more trouble, and they're not even going to try to.
Well, you mentioned it, military intervention, and like we referred before, every time we talk about it or we think about it, it must be always the last resource.
Yeah.
Always the last resource, because I see that people, very, very, very easily talking about, we need an intervention now.
Who's talking about intervention right now?
No.
The most extreme radical of the opposition, and the most extreme radical of the Maduro regime as well. Yesterday, we saw the vice president accusing Colombia, Brazil, and Washington of complotting against Venezuela in a military fashion. But then a few hours later, the exterior minister said, no, we're going to open the border with Brazil. So, their message is not uniform and it's not clear.
Well, and that's part of the situation. I mean,
that's part of it. Yeah.
Well, we have 20 years seeing this, and every time we see it, we studied what happens previously in some other situations, like happened, in Nazi regimes and in Russia and the Soviet Union. And we see the manipulation of ideas, the manipulation of the news, manipulation of the people's daily life. It happens. So we're being, struck by this new part, during 21st century, but we have to get through.
Yeah. So let's hope we survive it.
All right.
What do you think is going to happen this week? It's a Holy Week. Holy Week. What can we expect?
Well, I'm really scared. More than the thing in Venezuela, or despite the thing in Venezuela, I'm really shocked about what happened in Notre Dame Cathedral. I had the chance of going there not several times, but I studied in France, so I've been there, and it's a personal temple. I think it's nice. You know, feel comfortable there, and it shocks me. You know, it's really scary because it's turning that not only that cathedral, but other places, you know, religious places, Christian places are being attacked. Or
Burgos,
being, you know,
what's Burgos in French?
Burgos, it's between Spain and France. And also, I heard the news that another cathedral, also in France, was in flames. It was caught in fire in March 19, but nobody noticed because, I mean, it wasn't a huge news like this one. But it's scary. It is scary because, you know, Europe have to be really aware of, you know, what's going on around the world. And, well, it's a Holy Week. It's a time to, you know, think a lot of...
Yeah. Thank God we don't have a religious war going on here, because that would be really damning for the country. It would be
and coming back to our situation in Venezuela, we start talking about the Red Cross, like if we're an international institution, which is not. It's like the FIFA or the Comité Olímpico, International Olympic Committee. And what's going on really is in your American States organization and la ONU, National Nations Organization, we have the recognition of Venezuelan representation designed represented by Juan Guaidó. So that's a major event too. Yeah,
Guaido's ambassadors have been recognized in the OAS, in the Organization of American States, in the United Nations. That's a huge step of recognition to Juan Guaidó, and of course, it's a huge step to regaining some kind of democracy in our country. So at some point,
if we see it because that was last week, and even Mike Pence was, you know, addressing to the General Assembly of the UN. And he directly talk with the Venezuelan or Maduro's envoy and tell him, well, please, you should, with all the respect, you should, you know, leave that seat.
You should leave the seat.
And go. And so it's
that
interesting.
That was impressive. If you haven't seen it, go on YouTube and watch Mike Pence, moment.
It's interesting. Well, the thing is, we don't get bored here in Venezuela.
Oh, no. I mean... I wish we had more time, or I wish people would really tune in to an hour of news of Venezuela, because everything
it's a new episode.
A new episode. Everything has a lot of context, and it's all very interesting.
It looks like a political soap opera.
Yes.
Every year we have another thing, but at the same time, well, we have there. So, Oscar, what do you think is going on next week? Well, another month will end up.
We don't. That's the thing. The thing is that we don't get bored here. Yes, but every week is something different, something new. We don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of uncertainty, and that's categorized our news spectrum in Venezuela for years now, for at least 20 years now. We don't know what is going to happen. And it has everybody at the edge of their seats constantly. But we just have to wait and see.
Oh, and also, every activity we do, I'm a lawyer. A lot of people is asking me what to do, about the legal part. Invest in Venezuela or not. I have a friend who's buying an apartment here. Of course, it's a good deal, because an apartment that used to have a price, of $80,000 could be bought right now in $25,000. So a lot of people is trying to invest in Venezuela, but at the same time, the situation, they don't, feel comfortable with it. But that's the price of, uncertainty. But if it's a good deal. And also, there's a news that they had this meeting in the Department of Treasury in the United States. Some people from Germany, representation of Germany, France, Spain, other countries, trying to find out ways to help recovering institutionality in Venezuela. So we'll see a lot of this, I think, next month or at the end of this week.
I'll tell you what, and we'll finish with this because we always talk about a saying in Spanish, and there's no turning back of what the opposition has started. So I'll leave you with chivo que se devuelve, se nuca.
How would you translate that?
The goat that turns around chokes himself.
All right,
so
I haven't heard it.
We go forward, we see what happens, and tune in next week to Venezuela in Focus.
See you next week.
Ciao, hasta luego.
Ciao.